I think it's time this Z gets more fuel flow. So if you're new to the VR30, this engine is pretty capable of some power, but the limiting factor is the high pressure fuel pump and the low pressure fuel pump. The most you can get out of those pumps are E30 mixtures. And while yes, E30 is probably the best bang for your buck, we want to go for more power and eventually bigger turbos. The FX180 is going to flow 80% more than the OEM, and it's going to raise the fueling limits of this VR30, allowing me to run more ethanol, bigger turbos, and make more power. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the engine cover. You'll be using the number 5 Allen key to remove the bolt. So now with that exposed, you can see the high pressure fuel pump. I've already installed the AMS Flex Fuel Kit. That's why you see the sensor here and the aftermarket line. If you want to see how I installed that, make sure to catch that video towards the end. But for right now, let's go ahead and continue with the high pressure fuel pump install. Disconnect the high pressure fuel pump, pull the insulator off. Now you've exposed the high pressure fuel pump. I'm gonna take this oil cap off, turn this harness over. Just try to maintain a very clean area because, again, I've always mentioned it whenever I do my field work, you do not want debris inside. It's gonna clog an injector. And for the most part, this is pretty clean in here. I already blew it off with an air compressor, so I feel pretty confident here. So now we're going to loosen this nut. We got a little bit of fuel in there. I'm not too worried about all the fuel coming out. If you want, you can disconnect the fuel pump relay, crank the car, and wait until it dies. I am not gonna do that. The car has been off for a little bit. I'm not worried about it squirting that much fuel. All right, so now we're gonna back these bolts out. They're 10 millimeters. Kind of do it a little at a time. Do it like half a turn at a time or a quarter turn. That way the spring unloads evenly. So now it should be able to come up. We're gonna go ahead and loosen this. This came with the AMS Flex Fuel sensor. And now go ahead and transfer that fitting onto the new part. Now with this fitting installed, we're gonna go ahead and place the high pressure fuel pump back into its location. Just get some of that oil and kind of dab over the top of this spring or bottom. That way there's a little less wear upon installation. So basically same as before, just go ahead and put the bolts in and do quarter turns at a time for each side. All right, so now at this point, you're gonna see that the outlet does not line up with the fuel line. So we have to bend this line into position. You gotta be very careful not to bend it where it's gonna strain the welds over here, because this is where normally people crack it. So you kind of have to hold here and bend this portion up. All right, so basically you wanna get it as straight as possible. I used a plastic utensil. I was banking it over this cover here. That way I can get some leverage to get it as straight as possible for it to go seat inside of here. If it's not straight, this nut will not go on. So you gotta get pretty close. All I have to do is connect this baby back. All right, so the next step is turn on the car and hopefully see no leaks. Prime the pump first. One more time. Verify if you saw anything come out. And it's definitely squirting from the nut, I think. Hopefully. All right, there's no fuel coming out now. Looks pretty good to me, thankfully, because I had to turn this little red cap over to the other side. Spool sent it to me inverted. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and update the new file. All right, so the car is gonna be on ACC mode. Let's wait for this thing to recognize Bluetooth dongle. My car, program ECU. file there and not logged in. 16 program. And it's starting. You can hear the pumps running. So while this thing is loading, I'm gonna demonstrate how good this battery is. I just turned on the car and turned it off pretty quickly, so it did not charge. I don't have any trickle chargers plugged in. 3 lights means it's full. We'll see by the time it's finished riding to prove to the naysayers that this battery does in fact last a long time, even when doing a flash. 100%. Turn the ignition off. Turn the ignition on. Close. Just went through a whole cycle. Three lights, still in full battery. This battery is the truth, man. Only weighs like 7 pounds, and I can flash like 3 times before one of those lights drop. So if you want a battery like that, 10% off your order using code ZILLIFOBOOST10 at checkout. High pressure fuel pump installed. It's running good. One step closer to full flex fuel tune.